Evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, March 11th Curriculum Committee meeting of the Radnor Township School District School Board. So we have our usual cast of characters here, Ms. Girton, Ms. Duffy, and Ms. Lau. Myself, Dr. Babson, the chair. We don't have our student rep tonight. She's unable to make it, but we have Ms. Peterson as our teacher rep. As always, our superintendent. And over to you, Dr. Dukevich, for any administrative remarks.
I don't have any administrative remarks tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
And public comment, I believe we have one recorded.
Hello, this is Rachel Skurlock-Lowe. I have a senior in the high school and I live in Wayne, Pennsylvania. I am calling to express my concern regarding removing Fun Home from the high school curriculum. This decision does not seem to be in alignment with Board Policy 144.1, which is about reviewing materials in the library. I really hope that the committee reconsiders this decision to remove it from the curriculum. Fun Home is a Pulitzer Prize winning book by Alison Bechdel, who has also won the MacArthur Genius Grant. Her work deserves to be read widely, and our students deserve the opportunity to read such high quality and significant literature, both in the classroom and in the library. But this phone call particularly is regarding its removal from the high school curriculum. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Skurlock-Lowe, for that comment. We're now going to move to our own review of the minutes. Everything look good? Thumbs up. Oh, my apologies. Please come up. That's a procedural error on my part. Thanks.
I wrote stuff down, of course.
If
Hello,
you-
Carl Rosen from Wayne, and I teach at Radnor High School, and I'm the father of 2 Radnor grads and the uncle of 3 others. So my experience, I'm following on Dr. Skurlock-Lowe's commentary. My experience with argument as a teacher and as a colleague, as an engaged citizen, and as a parent, has certainly taught me that a better argument does not always win over a simpler one, but better matters. The issue that we're dealing with in terms of the banning of controversial materials, especially but not exclusively sexual material, is not an issue of pornography. It is an issue of complexity. The nature of art calls on us to deal with ambiguity and unravel complexity, not find a simple answer. If a story presents a character who's criminal or totalitarian or racist, it does not make the story criminal or totalitarian or racist, as simple as that equation might be. But the presence of such a character in the story is undeniable to anyone who glances at it, and those who approach literally will say this character is criminal, we should not be reading about him, this character is racist, we should not be reading about him, and they'll call this common sense. The philosopher Karl Popper demonstrated that appreciation of tolerance does not need to extend to tolerating intolerance. An explanation of why is better served in a venue that allows me more than 4 minutes, so I'm not going to go into it here, but we should be leading towards opposing intolerance by being open to speech and ideas and even in images that potentially disconcert us, challenge our assumptions, create uncertainty, as long as we're mature enough to handle the adult world, which, I argue, high school students have to be able to do in perhaps a way that younger students are not yet expected to do. This does not mean that anything goes. And you saw right there that what I tried to do is make a qualified statement and attempt to appreciate tension and complexity. Thorough understanding of the world requires us to engage, and we as a society, especially we in education, have an obligation to be tolerant and entertain complexity for its educational value and in the service of intellectual honesty, while still not accepting all products as equally valuable or suitable. If all this sounds kind of high-flown and you think that the framing should instead be as simple as pornography is bad, or at least pornography in schools is bad, I can see that that position is simpler. But I dispute the premise that nudity equals pornography or sexuality equals pornography. Literature is all about examining the human condition. Love and identity and even sexuality can be perfectly relevant in that context, especially when they're presented thoughtfully. For years, my students have done superb comparative analyses using optional books including Fun Home, which Dr. Scurlock-Lowe mentioned, a heralded graphical novel recently removed from the RHS library, and which, by the way, depicted a sexual situation between consenting college students, not minors, as the challenge that was recently done erroneously claimed. And I shared some of my students' reflections with Dr. Batchelor. I hope to be able to retain this book option. Losing it would impoverish some students' exploration of the world of ideas. I suggest that without a consideration of complexity, we can't come to an appropriate judgment about the pluses and minuses of any work of art. And simple or apparently simple ideas have done damage to societies around the world, including our own. We ought to promote a more thoughtful way to process complexity, and we very much need to process complexity. Thank you.
May I follow Carl? I did sign up.
Yes, please.
Thank you. As the oldest person in the room, I will give you some history. And again, on paper. I'm a 60-year resident of Radnor. I've lived in Wayne almost all my life.
I hate to interrupt, but could you please state your name and your
Sure.
town? Thank
Fran
you.
Finkel. I was 26 years at Radnor teaching. I have 2 sons who graduated from Radnor, who are doing very well in the real world. And I'm a lifelong reader. In a New York Times column last week, Radnor grad David Brooks called upon teachers to teach critical thinking. How embarrassing and distressing that 5 anonymous individuals have been permitted to take that opportunity away from our students. Critical thinking, I have to put my glasses on. Critical thinkers learn how to make decisions for themselves. Radnor can either be known as the best high school in Pennsylvania, and online that happens occasionally, or the high school that bans books. It can't be both. During my time at Radnor, a parent, now we're talking maybe 25, 30 years ago, objected to certain topics that were being taught in health class, believe it or not. The principal at the time determined that the children of that parent could be excused from those lessons. The other students were not deprived of the learning experience. I read genderqueer, as did my sons and their children. None of them had any negative reactions. Yesterday, in response to the Inquirer article, I attempted to take out Fun Home from 2 different libraries. All had been taken out. 5 individuals have made this a must-read. I hope they're pleased. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on again to our next agenda item. So let's have a review of the minutes, or let's talk about our review of the minutes. Thumbs up? Good. Okay, we're going to, here, pardon me. All right, so now we're going to hand it back over to Dr. Dukevich. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Dr. Babson. We have 1 high school club for review and 4 overnight trips for ratification that resulted from playoffs or state or regional competitions. So I'll pause for any questions from the board on those. All right, and at this time, we actually have 3 agenda items. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Lau.
With respect to the student club, I just wanted to make sure that the administration was mindful of both, our obligations pursuant to the First Amendment and also the Equal Access Act. This club should be student-run and student-initiated and in no way school-sponsored. And I know that that's the way with all of our clubs, but just given the subject matter of this club, I want to make sure that we all are mindful of that.
Absolutely. Okay. We have three main agenda items tonight. The first actually being the culmination of a very lengthy process to select a new ELA program for our K-5 teachers and students. At this time, I'd like to welcome Dr. Kearney and three teachers who have graciously offered their time tonight to speak on behalf of the program. Each of them also piloted the program. I'll let them introduce themselves as they come up. And we're excited to present a recommendation to the board this evening.
All right, good evening, everyone. I think Dr. Dukevich said that he'd allow our esteemed colleagues to introduce themselves, and we're very pleased to have some of our pilot teachers with us here tonight. So if you don't mind, just briefly introduce yourself, where you teach.
Hi, I'm Joan Weinstein. I teach kindergarten at Radnor Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Marissa Sullivan, and I teach third grade at Radnor Elementary School.
Hi, I'm Megan Davies, and I teach second grade at Ithan.
And our presentation tonight is a follow-up to last month's meeting where we went over basically the process that we have gone through to review ELA programs and come to our final recommendation tonight. On this screen, you see a snapshot of the major steps that we had taken. We started by screening books that had been reviewed by Ed Reports, getting copies of those to have our core vertical team review those and narrow it down to four possibilities that we got. Paper copies for all of our teachers to review, gathered questions from them about those 4 programs to get answered by the vendors, had presentations from those 4 vendors, and narrowed it down to the 2 that we ultimately piloted in 23 classrooms since the start of this school year. Administrators and teachers met with school districts who are currently using each of those programs, and we reviewed some comparison data between how students did on beginning of the year assessments and middle of the year assessments for those programs and our existing programming. That data was mixed. In some grade levels, CKLA students performed, had greater growth through CKLA. In other classrooms, into reading. In some classrooms, our existing program, although generally speaking, one of the pilot programs did better than our existing program, but it wasn't always the same pilot program. We surveyed our pilot teachers twice during the school year, and at the last time, we asked them to make a recommendation about programming. And the survey that they used basically asked for information, their feedback on these categories here. To what extent did they found the program to be aligned with our English Language Arts purpose statement, which is up there on the right, alignment with the PA core standards, how well the program helps teachers to explicitly, sequentially, and systematically teach them the major components of reading, basically the science of reading, how well the program will help teachers provide explicit instruction in writing, the quality of the reading and writing assessments, the quality of the resources to differentiate instruction, and ultimately what their recommendation was. When we compiled this data, 87% of our pilot teachers recommended either into reading or either of the 2 programs. 70% of our pilot teachers outright recommended into reading. So what that meant was that not only did our into reading pilot teachers recommend the program that they had piloted, but a number of our CKLA pilot teachers also recommended the program into reading, which was the program they did not pilot. We also sent a survey out to all of our K-5 teachers to see if they wanted to express any preference for program. We got feedback from them from, I think it was 19 additional teachers, so most of our teachers didn't weigh in, but all told, between the pilot teachers and the additional teachers who weighed in, 81% of all of those teachers recommended into reading or either of the programs for adoption. Which brings us here tonight. As I mentioned, you remember from last month, these were the 2 programs that we took a look at. We as an administrative team met prior to last week, elementary principals, Dr. Dukevich and I, and we reviewed the data that we had gathered throughout the pilot, including the performance on the assessments, as well as our teachers' feedback and the data we gathered from other districts. We deliberated about it, and we are going with that recommendation of into reading for the program. We didn't announce this to our classroom teachers until last Thursday at an optional morning meeting, and this is the video we used as part of the presentation to help make them aware of it. So you may recognize some of our communication department's handiwork in putting that video together for us. We asked them if they could help us out with a fun announcement to spring the news on everybody. As far as the program goes, as we had mentioned, we do have found the program to be largely aligned with the science of reading and a lot of the key elements that we would have liked to have seen in any of the programs that we were to adopt. There's both resources for whole class instruction as well as small group instruction where teachers could have rotations for different stations throughout the course of a ELA period. And particularly with the newest version, which we'll touch briefly upon, we do see the extension of a lot of the foundational skills up in the upper elementary grades, 3 through 5, whereas I think the program that we piloted, and the teachers here can speak more directly to it, emphasized those a little bit more heavily in K through 2. Explicit connection between the text, the writing that they're doing around text and the vocabulary that they're encountering in text, as well as grammar instruction and opportunities for grammar instruction on a daily or near daily basis. So that being said, the people who know this program in the district, bless you, the best are our teachers who spent each day with it since the summer as we're getting used to it and using it with their students daily since then. So I'm going to turn it over first to Ms. Weinstein, who again is a kindergarten teacher at Radnor. Then we'll hear from Ms. Davies, who's 2nd grade at Ithan, and Ms. Sullivan, who's 3rd grade at Radnor Elementary School, to share their experiences with Into-Reading, any of the things that stuck out to them as far as similarities or differences with our current program, and what their recommendation is as well.
Hi, good afternoon. I really enjoyed piloting this program. I was fortunate, I was part of the original committee with Jim when we had like 10 programs and we narrowed it down to 4 to 2. So I liked Into-Reading from the very beginning. I thought it was good, but what I like about it is it's a neat little package. So and also I've been teaching kindergarten for a really long time, and I'm teaching skills I never ever would have imagined I could teach in kindergarten, and then they're all doing it. So the structured literacy piece is a big part of my morning, and it's all run through the view board. There's slides. It's very user-friendly. I mean, it's very technology-based, the program, but it's very user-friendly. I'm not like the best at technology. I had no problems using it at all. It was very easy to use. But we're teaching skills that I've never taught before. Forget the science of reading. Obviously, they're mixing the foundational pieces, phonics, and phonetic and awareness, which we never had before. We never had like a Heggerty or phonetic awareness program. We just had the phonics program. So I get to do both of those. And while I'm mixed in, I'm teaching grammar. I've never taught nouns, verbs. I did prepositions last week. They're all using it, and they're learning it. You walk to my kindergarten class, they could tell you what a noun or a verb is, and I never would have imagined. I mean, and even the phonics programs, the way they're teaching, like closed syllables, open syllables, like a lot of those skills that would like come a little later are all coming in kindergarten. And I've been teaching a long time. I've never taught open syllables. Today, if you walk in my room and listen, they know short vowel, long vowel, open syllable, closed syllable. They know all of the terminology. And it's all from this program. And it's also very thematic based. So we have modules. There's 9 modules in kindergarten. The module is a theme. So right now, the theme, I'm teaching module 6, week 3. In kindergarten, each module is a month long. They're 4 weeks. And this is America is the topic. So it's we did last week, we focused on baseball in America, baseball in Japan. But then the reading, there's 2 books a week that we do, and it's me reading to them. And then that's how they're getting their talk to each other, turn and talk to your partner. That's how they're learning about comprehension. All of that is through direct teaching by me. But then the writing ties into the reading. So it's everything for the whole month is about America. And then the next month there'll be something else. So all of the things just tie in in a neat little bow together. And so I'll teach a whole reading lesson, then I go to do the writing lesson, and it's about what I just taught in the reading lesson. So for little ones especially, it just makes more sense. I feel like I get to the writing and the lessons are quicker because they just had a whole reading lesson on the same topic. So it just makes it a little bit more for them. And it's very skill-based. They're learning. Instead of our old program, it was here's the writing and just kind of get started. This time we're kind of teaching them why they're doing it. I'm teaching them the skills before they actually start. In the past, we would teach just write, and then I would teach periods. when you really think about it, I always said, how does this make sense? We tell them to write, then this is, I'm teaching them what a period is before they're even asked to use it. So there's a lot of purpose. I feel like everything I'm teaching has a reason and a purpose. And, it's a science of reading. It's based on science. So everything does have a purpose. So, I mean, I wholeheartedly, I was just saying to them, I turned my camera off and I was like so nervous for the presentation because I really believe in the program. And I think our students in our district will be very lucky to use this program moving forward.
Okay, so I teach second grade, and I made like a top 5 list of what I like about Into Reading. First, it has an organized scope and sequence with editable weekly plans, which is nice. It's like the whole module, as Joan said, has a theme. And each week, there's just this nice organized chart, and I like structure and organization. And so you just check off what you've taught, so you know what you've done and what you still need to do. I appreciate that. Secondly, I like the structured literacy piece, which we did not have before. And particularly for second grade, it's that bridge between the really young primary and the intermediate. And for the first time, I feel like I'm not jumping, I'm walking across the bridge with more phonemic awareness and practice, which I see the results starting to take shape, which is great. And obviously how it aligns with the science of reading. And the lessons, as Joan said, are guided with PowerPoint presentations, which are editable, but the routine and the structure is like really, the kids know what to expect, so they get out of it what they can, but it's not just like sitting and reading. It's they use magnets and they use their whiteboards, and it has handwriting in there, and so it's just, and it's very convenient for teachers. You're not recreating anything over and over again. Thirdly, I love the comprehension focus. We did have that in Making Meaning with real texts, real world literature, which Into Reading has as well, but they're organized around a theme. And so like right now we're doing what makes a great leader. So we read about Wilma Rudolph this week, and so all the books connect to that. So you can have that conversation with any book you read. And there's science topics, like next our module is how does weather affect us? One of my favorites was what lessons can we learn from characters? We read a lot of fables, and so I really like the focus and the essential question. And in addition to that, all the books also have a digital component. So every now and again, while the students have books that are print and color, there's one read aloud per week. And so that is displayed on our view boards, and I'll read a page, and then the view board will read a page. And it's like they love to like, oh, what voice is it this week? Is it the deep voice or the woman voice? So that part I like. What else? Differentiation. There are ideas for supporting English language learners. There's ideas for supporting struggling readers as well. And I do feel like we're pretty good at having resources for kids who need a little bit of enrichment. Although I have to say, like right now, we don't have a ton of that. It's pretty much already there. So there's that. And there's lots of options for assessment, formative and summative. And then from the kids' perspective, their top favorite things are the stories. They think these are my words, not theirs. Interesting, relatable characters, exciting plots. They like the vocabulary cards because they have pictures. Go figure. It's a change from our previous program. And we write sentences. The words all connect to the stories. We write sentences, draw pictures for them, and we talk a lot about parts of speech and which words go together and how to make sentences with them and things like that. They love Reader's Theater, which is one of the differentiation options, and the Reader's Theater connects to the themes, so that's like a social aspect of it. They love that. they don't know this, but they love their growth. I will say that. And there's anchor charts. I think for the first time, like there's an anchor chart for every rule, and it's like displayed, and they're like, oh, this is the floss rule, and this is the J rule, the DGE, and like open and close syllables, and it's just much more laid out and like easy to understand for little kids. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's much left for me to say. That was really well done. But I will say what stuck out to me with this program that I felt like was lacking from our previous program was cohesion. And that was really summed up by both of their experiences, and I also saw that in third grade as well. The thematic units provide a lot of enrichment for students, but they also provide that support for students who are struggling with the reading content or the skills or the standards or the writing skills, because it gives students this wealth of knowledge that they can apply to the text we're reading. They can apply that to the writing that we're working on in class. They feel successful even in the module assessments because they will link back to some of the same themes or topics or content or vocabulary. So those thematic units I think really set up students to feel successful, and that cohesion has probably been my favorite part of the program. Additionally, what I really enjoy about this program is, as Joan was speaking to this, the structure of the program. Previously in third grade, we hadn't really had a program for decoding. We weren't really focusing on phonics skills as much. What we really focused was, like, the shift was towards spelling. And I think this is a huge push now with the science of reading, but also something that I know my third grade team, as teachers, we were just seeing was needed. We were constantly reaching out to our reading specialists for support with this. What I saw with the program was that the decoding piece in third grade, it's applicable to all third grade students. It's not, students who are even reading on grade level, they still need this decoding piece. And there's a strong cohesion between decoding and encoding. So then you're setting up students for success with their spelling, they're ready to write, they feel confident in their writing. And I think that has been one of my favorite parts of this curriculum, because with our previous curriculum, we didn't have that strong cohesion between like decoding, encoding, and then our reading skills and our writing skills. So now I'm kind of seeing that roll over into the reading comprehension, the books that students are reading as a class, reading independently, and I think that's been a really strong indicator of success in my classroom in particular. Again, it's clearly laid out. I think it will be, I don't want to say it'll be easy for teachers to adopt next year. I don't think any of this is an easy task, but I do think that it's as streamlined as possible, and I think teachers will enjoy the experience of, learning this curriculum, and students as well. There's a lot of resources that align together. There's a reader that students have in third grade. We focus on one shared reading text a week. That text aligns back to the essential question we're answering. That's what we call it in third grade rather than our theme. We call it our essential question. So we're working towards answering that through those shared reading texts. There's a workbook that provides skill-based practice, anchor charts that align to those skills, and then, of course, the writing connects back to what we're practicing in reading. And like has been said, by everyone, it really sets up students for success during that ELA block.
Thank you all so much. And we all owe an awful lot of thanks to all of our pilot teachers. They really took this upon themselves to begin familiarizing themselves with the program at the end of last year and then over the summer, and dedicating time towards it, not just what they're doing day in and day out with their students, but additional meetings to engage in professional development, to share their experiences with one another, to share their experiences with us. So they really undertook a lot to help us make an informed decision here. And about half of them went into it knowing that whichever program we went with wouldn't be the one that they chose. We just didn't know until very recently about which that would be, but they were very kind enough to take on that challenge, and we're very appreciative of that. when we piloted Interreading, we did pilot Interreading version 2 because that was the most current version that was available. We'll be adopting version 3. We did meet with the company HMH, who spent a little bit of time both with the pilot teachers as well as administrators, kind of giving us an overview of some of the changes. Clearly, we're not going to understand them as well until we dive into it and begin using it, but I think it sounded, generally speaking, to be positive. In fact, I recognize in a couple of the areas, some of the feedback we were hearing back from the pilot teachers seemed to be addressed by the changes that they were describing, including streamlining some of the materials, integrating the structured literacy pathway as part of the core materials as opposed to an optional, almost add-on to the version 2 version, as well as incorporating writing, I think, a bit more purposefully. Version 3, our understanding, also does take some of the foundational skills and builds them out, I think, a little bit more thoroughly into the upper elementary grades, which should serve our students well. So there are some changes and some differences between the version we piloted and the version that we will adopt. And as I mentioned, actually, before we get to that, next steps. So we are asking, if it sounds good to you, to approve this, bring this to the school board for approval, hopefully this month. You have, as part of the materials we made available to you for this meeting, and the school board has available to them, an overview of the program, some access to the digital teacher materials, as well as the digital student materials, if anyone wants to dive into them. Outside the superintendent's office upstairs, there are paper copies of samples from each of the grade levels that people are welcome to look at as well. The cost of the program has been included in our proposed budget for next school year, so this is something that we anticipate us doing since last year, really. So we included it as part of our proposed budget in the fall, and the cost that you have with the textbook adoption form and the price quote as part of your materials is accounted for there. We would like to begin our professional development in the spring in a couple ways. One, May 20th is an in-service day, and we have tentatively scheduled HMH to do an overview of the program for our K-5 teachers. We also have allocated some flex time since the beginning of the year for our K-5 teachers to explore whichever of the materials we went with this adoption, so they're going to have some time to look through those as well. We have an orientation for our leadership team, which would be our building principals, and some of the other roles we have, like our MTSS facilitators and a few others, to get oriented to the program as well. Beginning this spring and then into the summer, we do anticipate revising curriculum documents, identifying common assessments, doing pacing guides, those sort of things, and continuing professional development in the fall, both in August, November, and in various forms outside of those 2 in-service days as well. But implementation would begin with the start of the next school year, and we are excited about what that means. And we're excited, as I mentioned last month, what that means as both our initiatives come together when it comes to ELA, not just at the elementary level, but expressly at the elementary level with the adoption of this new program. As I shared, we have been focusing on structured literacy and the instruction that goes into high-quality reading and high-quality writing. So as of last Friday, K-5 teachers have finished the last of the initial structured literacy professional development on writing. So all told, our K-5 teachers would have had about 18 hours of professional development on structured literacy. The structured literacy core team, which includes representatives from K through 12, would have had really more than 3 times that to help equip them to not only deliver the structured literacy professional development to all teachers, but deepen their knowledge as well. And these, as I mentioned previously, are representatives from our special ed department, reading specialist, ELD representative, our instructional coaches / MTSS facilitators. So a lot of the people who are providing some of our more intensive support to students, in addition to supporting their colleagues with a lot of this work as well. And for those people who may be interested, here are 3 of the resources, just 3 books that the Structured Literacy Core team has been using to deepen their knowledge about not just the research behind high-quality literacy instruction, but also some of the practices that can be implemented in classrooms and with the students that they're working with directly. So for people who are interested, this is by no means all of it, but those were 3 of the core resources we have used. With all of that being said, we did want to open up to any questions that the committee might have and try to answer them.
Thank you very much. Customarily, I pass the baton to other members of the committee before weighing in, but I wanted to pose a question that might frame things a little bit. And this is just sort of a kind of a softball here, but I think that one of the purposes of me asking this question is that maybe people haven't heard of what structured literacy is and how it's different from previous approaches. And I'm wondering if any one of you would like to field that particular question. Again, you know, what is structured literacy and how is it different than, let's say, I mean, Ms. Weinstein, you were talking about how this approach is pretty different from what you've been using for a long time. So that might be interesting to talk about that for a minute, about what came before and how this is different.
Sure, this is one of their easy questions.
So, in our past, we had binders which would have that we followed that matched with just our making meaning and our being a writer and additional skills that we were studying, mostly based on a balanced literacy approach, which was considered to be like a whole language approach mixed with phonics. Our phonics program was Foundations. The program is very good, but it's just phonics. There is not any phonemic awareness piece to it. So for those kids that are auditory learners and that learn differently, it probably wasn't the best program for everyone. Did most kids learn well? Yeah, my kids learn that way. They're successful. Grant learned that way. I had him. He was successful, you know. But and so they did. But the science is telling us that's not enough, and we need to do more. So structured literacy takes all of these things together. So now our the phonics and the phonemic awareness piece come together every day, and they're taught. Also, the difference too with structured literacy is a lot of Wilson is big on learning the letter with a picture and the sound. And then what research is telling us, then sometimes the kids can never let go of the picture. They don't really understand the sound. Although this introduces a picture just in the introduction, when I'm practicing letters and letter sounds, it's just the letters and letter sounds. It takes that away. So it's like just, so they're really like learning it. So it's really the difference is the phonemic awareness and the phonics are meshed together versus before we didn't have a program like that. Does that help?
That's great, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, now we can do our usual thing. Ms. Curtin?
First of all, thank you so much. It is really a joy to have professionals step up to pilot, and your enthusiasm is really appreciated. I have very simple questions, even a softball than that. My first question is, the theater, is it just acting out plays? I mean, acting out reading? Oh, yeah.
So, Reader's Theater, for each module, they have small group activities or suggestions you could assign students to do. They're optional. And Reader's Theater is practicing fluency. So with every Reader's Theater script, there is something that they are practicing, whether it's like intonation or paying attention to punctuation. And they practice the script with a small group, and then there's even a piece in there where they like write their own, like choose their own adventure. They have to write their own ending, and it's a very simple script. It's some Reader's Theater scripts could be 10 pages. This is around 4, so it's not something that takes too much time. But they have to write in their own ending, and then they have to reflect on how they did with the skill that we're practicing in that theme or that module. And then they record themselves on their iPads, and then I listen to it, and then I reflect on their work.
So in other words, it's a replacement for just reading aloud, and so they can actually practice their fluency with each other.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a replacement, but it's social engagement in reading that seems like to have a purpose.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah.
Sounds great to hear that. And then my other question was, do you find, as you've been piloting, that you wish there was something in the program that you're not seeing?
I mean, I was going to say no. The handwriting, you have to print everything out. So I would recommend maybe keeping our current handwriting program for cursive practice, but I don't even know if that's true in the other grade levels.
It's not in kindergarten.
Okay, so
it's in a workbook in kindergarten.
In the version that I piloted this year, and this could change for the upcoming version, for the handwriting piece, you do have to print out all of those pages. Just kind of a lot of like printing and copying if you think of the whole 3rd through 5th grade ranges doing that. But other than that, no.
And I'll add that one of the things we did ask the pilot teachers about, that wasn't necessarily part of the rating, but we wanted feedback on, was were there any other areas, specific areas that they felt the need to supplement with which is the existing program? And people did identify some areas. As we said from the very beginning to our teachers, as well as you at the last meeting, we don't believe there's any perfect program, but we believe that with this core program and frankly, either of the ones we're looking at, we would make a lot of good headway towards having some solid core resources our teachers can depend upon. But we don't pretend that it will do everything for everyone all the time. We know that good instruction is a key to students' development, and that may require some supplemental resources.
I'm going to add one more thing, actually. I think with the thematic units, something that I did do throughout this year is I would extend upon those units. So we had a unit about American symbols. So I would add in extra resources or maybe set up a project for students to work on during our MTSS block that connect it back to what we were learning about in that unit. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for extension. So if you're thinking about adding in extra resources there, that's definitely a way to do so.
I just would add that with all of that, I think there is an inquiry project that you can do with every module, but time is what we need. So I wish we had more time. Yeah.
Neither of the programs gave us more time.
Well, thank you so much. I know taking on this, to the teachers, taking on a pilot is extra work, and I appreciate your dedication and, commitment to our students. I don't know many times where you can get percentage. I think we were hearing 70% or 80% agreed. So, there's not many places in our country right now where we can get people to agree that many times. So that sounds like really positive news. And I was particularly impressed that the teachers who put in all the time to pilot the other program actually, I believe many of them voted to go with this program. So I think we're in good hands and very enthusiastic about that. So I guess, and I also, just knowing that we put the investment in the science of reading and structured literacy, we started that. To hear that it complements or it deepens that is just means it's nice that we were already, I think everyone will already have a bit of a head start, right? That's what I'm hearing. So I'm seeing heads nod, so that's good. And then the different, I guess one thing that we did here last month, I think when you were previewing this, was that we were finding that with the pilot teachers, we were having fewer students needing potentially interventions or being pulled out. And so could you speak to that a little bit, if that was your experience?
That was some of the anecdotal information we heard from some of our teachers, but I know that Ms. Weinstein was one of those teachers who shared some of that as part of our debriefing sessions.
Yes, so we have a program in kindergarten. It's where, based on data, kids get pulled out for double dose, where they work with a literacy paraprofessional on skills based on our Wilson program, or with the reading specialist based on other things. And I've been teaching kindergarten a long time, and this is and this is the smallest amount of. Right now, I have one child getting pulled out of my room for extra support, and on an average year, I would have 5 to 6. So I really do think it's made a big difference. I just think they're getting those skills so much in the classroom that they're really getting mastery of them. So then when they're being assessed, we're seeing a difference. So I think it's gonna, if it can, I could see it really impacting how we use literacy powers moving forward in the years to come, based on what happened in my classroom this year.
Okay, and then I guess lastly, it kind of builds off of what Ms. Girton had asked. Is there anything from the old program that you feel that this program is missing or that you might want to carry forward?
Sure. Yeah. Some teachers said they wanted to hold on to some of the books themselves, but.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say, the books. The making meaning, the turn and talk to your partner, and the way the kids would learn to speak to each other. I loved, but that is also in this program as well. So like a lot of the same skills that I was teaching in the Making Meaning when I'm teaching shared reading, I'm using, it's very, very similar. So I feel like I'm not losing anything. And yeah, I would love to keep the books, but other than that, I feel like the best pieces of what we had are in the new program.
Yes. I know like there's a couple instances, and this might be something for teams to kind of go through where third grade we read about Wilma Rudolph, and I know that's a second grade topic now. So I think there are some instances where we have text that would align really well to some of those thematic units and could be passed between grade levels.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our pilot teachers for going above and beyond. I really appreciate kind of hearing specific examples from you as to what really makes this a high-quality program. Some of the things that I loved hearing was that how different elements of the program seem to constantly reinforce each other, because it just sounded like a much more efficient way to do things. And I think one of you mentioned kind of the themes and how helpful they are. And I think research shows that when you have that thematic through line through different elements of instruction, it actually helps alleviate mental fatigue for the students as well. Because like you said, I think one of you mentioned, you're not just introducing a new skill, like, if you have to introduce a brand new thematic topic, then that just takes up space and extra energy from them. And when they can just kind of continue with that theme, but just apply it toward a new skill, you're actually just making it much more efficient for both you and them. And I would imagine, great teachers throughout time have probably come up with those themes themselves, right? And it's great that the program does it for you, right? And so that you can focus your energies, on other things that you have to do. And then I've mentioned this multiple times in previous meetings before, but when I was running as a school board candidate and then even as a sitting school board member, I would say this was the one topic that I received the most feedback on. It was kind of, the perception by some parents that our old program or our current program really was deficient in the area of structured literacy and how it really was not aligned with where the science of reading is now currently. And, just hearing everything that we've been presented with, I really do think we're doing right by those parents who had that feedback for us. Hopefully they agree with us that, this new program should address all of those concerns. Obviously, we'll see, it in action across, once we roll it out district-wide. But, I'm just really pleased that we're all on the same page here, that the old program, did have these deficiencies and that, hopefully the new program will go a long way toward addressing those. So, I just wanted to share that I'm glad that, we are being responsive to that feedback.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Peterson?
I just want to say I'm happy to know that I can now tell my seniors you learned this in kindergarten. So, that's my comment.
Just very quickly, because I've already taken up my time with my previous question, but just a couple of quick points. I've said it before, so I'm being a little bit repetitive, but early language development is so intertwined with early cognitive development that any kind of investment that we make in this is worth every penny. I mean, the benefits are going to redound through the years. And so the whole process, speaking about the process with Dr. Kearney and we discussed it in depth in the planning meeting, and I'm very encouraged. And it is very, very, I would say, exciting might be too strong of a word, but from an educator's point of view, and as someone who used to teach grammar and grammar pedagogy, this is wonderful. And that's all I have to say. And I just want to say thank you, Ms. Davis, Sullivan, Ms. Weinstein. Sullivan, Ms. Weinstein have taught my kids. Thank you. Appreciate it. And that's, I think, all we have from our committee. Thank you.
Thank you all, and thanks again to our teachers who are here tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, and next, our next two agenda items, we're going to invite Mr. Bechtold to the front here. And we're going to start with approval of updates to the 25-26 district calendar.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Evening.
So the board approved the 25-26 instructional calendar over a year ago in February of 2024. What you have in front of you are changes to the instructional calendar. We have been, thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. I was going to say something, but yeah, thank you.
We have been working diligently actually on the 26-27 calendar, which you do not have in front of you, but it's a teaser. It will be coming very shortly. And as we went through that process, one of the things that we realized is there were some opportunities to enhance the 25-26 calendar. And so there are 4 changes that you'll see under the calendar revision sheet. The first thing is we moved a flex in-service day from June 15th to December 29th, and this is feedback both from administrators and from teachers, helping to front-load that teacher PD allows us to be able to better structure the calendar so they're not waiting until the very end of the school year. It gives us another PD option in the middle of the school year, and this is a flex PD. The second thing that we did is we added 2-hour early dismissals for K-8, and this aligns with our MTSS schedule. So feedback from the elementary administrators and teachers was that these data analysis meetings will really pay dividends to our students. So those were added on the 17th of October, February 13th, and May 8th. We also made the election days on November 4th and May 19th virtual instructional days for the high school only. That is something that we have been doing with the high school that has been working well. That was not included in the 25-26 calendar because we were piloting it in this year and in the year prior, so we included that there. And the last change would be the state of Pennsylvania changed the science PSSAs. They moved it from 4th and 8th grade to 5th and 8th grade. One of the things that they're doing is they are transitioning all school districts to online tests. And for them to be able to do that, they felt that the easiest way to do that would be to give the students in 5th grade the online PSSA and have all districts pilot that. And so that change is reflected on this calendar as well, just following what the state's doing. All right, I will take any questions that people may have about the changes to the next year's calendar.
Thank you. Committee?
I just have one question. Thanks, Dr. Bechtold, appreciate it. The day of the 29th of December, which it's a Monday, and it looks like it would work out, have we kind of spoken to our staff and our faculty and how that is going to go?
Yes, so this is a flex day,
Okay.
and so teachers would be assigned different activities that they can complete by either their curriculum supervisor or their building principal, and they would have an opportunity to get it done in the fall of that year. If they did not get it done, then they would report on that day, but the majority of our teachers will get that done in advance.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Yes. Yep.
That date also, that looked concerning too.
Well,
So
I should have known
yeah.
it, but
No.
And I'll add that was actually feedback from our teachers because having multiple days at the end of the school year is something that kind of hangs over their head, and so a lot of people would like to go and get that done and knocked out. So that was actually a change that in conversations with the teachers union that came out of that.
Absolutely. No? Good. Okay. All right. That's it for that.
All right, jumping ahead to our 339 plan, which has a couple different names. The state calls it the K-12 guidance plan. We have made the shift, as most people in the profession, to call it school counseling instead of guidance. But what you'll see in front of you is there are 2 documents. One is an executive summary, which I'll run through quickly, and the other one's a very comprehensive document. What I'll say about the comprehensive document is this is us just memorializing in a state template that the Pennsylvania Department of Education requires us to submit all of the great work that has been done over the past 5 years. So Districts across the Commonwealth are required to submit these every 5 years. And we have been working diligently as a district to really up our game as far as school counseling is concerned. Highlighting some of the things that we did back in the 21-22 school year, the board made it a priority project for us to go and really look at our college and career readiness program at the high school. And so we spent a year digging into that. We had members of the community, parents, students, teachers, a variety of different stakeholders that provided input, and we had a comprehensive report that was provided to the curriculum committee, as well as a presentation in June of 2022 that highlighted a number of the different things we could do to enhance our program. Thanks to the board, we were able to add college and career counselors at the high school and redo our structure. That gave us, our students, a real leg up. Now each student in grades 10, 11, and 12 have a social and emotional learning counselor that helps them with day-to-day struggles that they may have, as well as a college and career counselor that helps them plan for post-Radnor, post-graduation. Subsequent year in 22-23, we went and implemented those recommendations. There was a lot of changes that needed to take place. We hired our college and career counselors. They hit the ground running. We had a year for them to plan. And then the board curriculum committee got an update in May of 2023 about the changes that were in place. In this document, which is available to anybody in the public that is interested, we have all of the presentations in here as well as all of the YouTube videos. So if you're sitting at home and you're like, this is interesting, you can click any of those links and follow along. In the 23-24 school year, so last year, we were up for our curriculum review cycle. Since we had just spent an entire almost 2 years looking at the high school and implementing that, we really focused on our K-8 school counseling model and dug into what we could do to improve the school counseling for students that are in our elementary and middle school. There were a number of findings that we identified to help to improve this for our students, and those are included in here. The biggest piece, the heaviest lift, was a K-8 curriculum framework. So we heard from our counselors, we heard from parents, and we heard from the middle school staff that having common language in our elementary schools and a common experience, at least touchstones where students get the same experience, would really help to benefit our kids. And so this school year, we've been working on putting that together and building this curriculum roadmap. Throughout the last 5 years, we have also really solicited ongoing feedback. The state asks us once a year to gather feedback from our community. We do it twice a year. And so in the fall and the spring, we have a K-12 school counseling advisory committee that is comprised of school board members, administrators, teachers, school counselors. We've got people from post-secondary that show up. We have business people in our community, and they provide us feedback about how our program is going and ways that we can enhance that. So again, I'll circle back to the beginning. This is a template that we need the board to approve so we can actually submit our state reporting, but it's really memorializing the fantastic work that the school district's been doing to try to move the needle forward for our students.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, another round of comment from the committee. We'll start with Ms. Lau this time.
Thank you. You know, I know it's mandated by the Commonwealth, but I just really appreciate the great work in putting this report together. Obviously, substantively, like what we're actually doing, but I just really appreciate the presentation as well. It's very clear. The SMART goals format, is that required by the state, or did we decide to do?
This is a template. It is required by the
Yeah.
state.
You know, I love the SMART goals, just coming from the corporate sector. Honestly, I just want to throw it out there. I wish we used it more often in everything we did, especially like our district objectives that we approve as a board every year. I just think it really forces you to hold yourself accountable when you are forced to kind of like fill out every element of SMART. And it would really help me personally be able to effectively gauge our progress at the end of the year with respect to each of our objectives. So I was really happy to see it in here, and I guess I just want to throw it out there as a board and for the administration. The more we can use SMART goals in everything that we set out to do, I think the better.
Duly noted. We have, well, we had the board president here, but we have the board vice president here. And duly noted. I think that could be interesting to consider. Okay, Ms. Curtin.
Good.
Good?
Thank you so much.
Stuffy? Okay. I will just say one thing. First of all, thank you for obliging my request for the executive summary. I found it extremely useful and helpful because, as you said, this has been a years-long, multiple years-long effort. Just for the sake of time, a few things I could say, but just so you know, my home department at Penn is the Human Development Department at the Penn GSE, and this is maybe interesting to just say publicly here that the work that we have done here, that you've done, that others have done here, is known in that department and known by practitioners in the area as something special and something different. And so just something to share. Some kudos.
Thank you, and I certainly can't take credit. We have a fantastic K-12 school counseling staff. The heavy lifting on this was done by our school counselors, and so we really appreciate the support of the board and all the work that they've put into this, so thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Ms. Peterson, anything? No? Okay. All right. Thank you. And looking at that, time-wise, we're doing pretty well. All right.
Are we just going to add that ends the agenda that we have? If there's any new business or public comment or something?
Anything for textbook adoption that last?
Oh, those two are attributed to the ELA
great.
recommendation, so
All
there's
right,
more
thank you.
details there. And there's some ancillary documents also on board docs about the program. And as Dr. Kearney mentioned,
Okay.
they are outside upstairs if anyone wants to look at the print materials as well.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right, item 5, new business. Any new business? Okay, any live public comment to follow up? Okay. And I would like to, just before we adjourn, open up the floor to our committee to discuss any further ideas that are on our mind from anything that has been discussed in public comment or anything related to the curriculum. Yes, Ms. Lau.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who took the time to come out to share their public comments with us. I also serve on the policy committee, which is meeting at 7 o'clock tonight, so I don't want to steal the thunder of our chair. She was sitting right here earlier, or get ahead of myself. But, I, for one, really appreciate when people share their thoughts with us in person, via email, in the recorded comments. I love it when our constituents are this engaged and this passionate. I just want to make it clear, I don't think all of my colleagues share my feelings on this, but I personally really, truly appreciate it. And I would invite you, I know 4 minutes is not a long time, and a lot of these topics are really meaty. And so if you have additional ideas or just want to get into more details, I welcome emails on this topic. Send it to all of us. But I want to make sure that, we take the time to address all of these comments that we've received, and I want it to be an ongoing process. I don't want it to just be one meeting or 1 month of these comments.
Thank you very much. And I will just echo very briefly, I'm also on the policy committee, also looking forward to that. Yes, we'll see you soon. And Janie and I were having a nice conversation earlier today, and we both agreed that we're fans of the Vox Populi. We're fans of people coming to meetings, offering their expertise, their advice, their critiques, everything. And this is coming from someone, some of us also here, that have been through some pretty intense and interesting public meetings. So depending, well, let's say, irrespective of the topic, and irrespective of the place that someone might take or the side that someone might take on a particular issue, I would definitely say that I'm a fan of people coming to meetings and offering their 2 cents. I will also say that I just a general comment that I think that when we engage with and grapple with really as Mr. Rosen said in his public comment, very complex issues. I think it gives us all an opportunity to work together as a board and also to do a little bit of co-learning, I guess, as a board and as a community, that we are learning from each other, that the community is learning about how the board works. So for example, and this will be discussed in policy, but when ad hoc committees are convened, how that opinion might move through the system, that there are certain ways that happens, that although ultimately the school board has the final say in anything, we have a process, and as we will see going forward in the policy meeting, it's more appropriate to talk about it then, that we'll be focusing on that process. So those are just a couple of quick comments. And I think finally that it is within the purview of the curriculum committee to talk about such issues because it relates to learning and learning materials, whether they're in the classroom or in the library. So those are just some brief remarks. Ms. Curtin.
Since I'm not on the policy committee, I will take 1 minute to say that I wholeheartedly agree, Ms. Lau, that the reason I decided to run for school board was because I trust our community to engage, and we have shown that our community is really strong when we come together and really hear everybody's voices. So I agree that it's really wonderful to see the engagement, and I appreciate that and learning from that.
Well, it's just a love fest up
Yeah.
here. Yes. I agree, and I actually want to put a little, we worked really hard, what was it now, 2 years ago on Policy 006, which is a forum for public comment, which is probably one of the most generous around in terms of how we conduct. So I think that this board has never shown anything but that they value community input, and I think that we'll have an interesting discussion in our next meeting. So thank you.
Okay, that's a wrap. Thank you.